Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming to the workshop. I wanted to get started on time because even though I know there's a couple more people that said they were coming, but we'll have to get started just because it is a 2-hour workshop, so I wanted to get it going as soon as we could. Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, my name is Maggie-Roach-Ganaway, and I'm Caregiver Support Coordinator with Caregivers Nova Scotia. I come up here once a month to do a support group at the medicine shop, and we'll talk about that later, but you know, if anybody's interested, you have all my information on the card there, so that you can give me a call and we can hook you up, okay? So, just before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. I don't know where the washrooms are. Where are the washrooms? The washrooms are just around the corner there. If you have a phone, could you set it to vibrate? And if you have to take a call, you can just kind of go out in the hallway there and do that. We are going to have a short break about halfway through. There's going to be refreshments, tea and coffee and sweets to help yourself. It'll be a short break because, like I said, it is quite a long workshop, so you know, we want to make sure we get through it all. Evacuation exits, one there and one there in case of emergency. Not good, we won't have any of those. Just before we start, it's always important to remember that the more you put into a workshop, the more you're going to get out of it. So we're going to do some activities throughout the workshop. It's all right. And, you know, so like I said, the more you participate, the more you're going to get out of it. And I know most of you here, but just to start, maybe we can just do a little introduction. You can just say your first name and if you're caring for someone, and we'll start over here.
I'm Mary, I'm a caregiver for my husband.
Yeah.
And I'm Mary. And I'm Susan.
Susan?
Yeah. And I'm Evelyn.
Evelyn? You care for?
I care for my mom.
Mira.
Bridget. I care for my mom as well.
Okay.
I'm Caroline. I look after mom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maria, I look after my
Father? Yeah.
Jeanette, I look after my husband.
And Elmer.
I look after my son.
Okay. Great. Thanks, all. So, we'll just going to tell you a little bit about my organization. Like I said, for people who know me already, because I do come up here for a support group, and I see a lot of our support group members here. I work for Caregivers Nova Scotia. We've been around about over 20 years actually now, and it's not a sin that if you haven't heard of us, because you know it's a lot of our advertising is word of mouth, so sometimes it's hard to get the word out there that we're here. We are open to all caregivers, regardless of their age or health condition. We define a caregiver as a person who gives essential unpaid care to someone either at home or in a care facility. They can have a physical, mental, or it could be chronically ill or just frail and elderly, right? A lot of the times you have to help out your elderly parents along the way, right? This workshop was created to address the issues of caregiver stress and to provide caregivers with information and strategies to help you cope. And as I said, we're going to go through some activities along the way, but you know, to give you some coping skills. So, you know, the job you do is important. It's very important. I don't know if I say this in our programs and services. I think it's up to $67 billion a year we save the healthcare over Canada, right? In healthcare dollars by caring for somebody, you know, either in the home or, you know, being an unpaid caregiver. So we are funded by the Department of Nova Scotia Seniors and Long-Term Care, and they just changed the name. It used to be the Department of Health and Wellness Long-Term Care Branch, or Continuing Care Branch, but they just changed the department name and amalgamated, so we're the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care. And we're in all 4 areas of the province, or right across the province. My area is all of Cape Breton. So I cover from Sydney, Inverness, everywhere. So, and all the way here to Port Hawkesbury to the Causeway. Oops, wrong way. So just before we start, everybody has a notepad on their post-it note, and I want you just to write down just even one or two things as to what you would like to get out of this workshop. And just put them on the front of your table, just to, stick them on the front of your table there, and I'll collect them in a little bit. I'm just going to tell you what our objectives for today are. Okay. So we're going to try to understand what stress is and how it affects you. Okay, can't lean on that. We're going to help you recognize what the warning signs of stress are, identifying personal stressors, learning strategies for effective stress management, and how to develop a SMART goal. It's important to recognize that alongside every chronic illness and person with disability walks a caregiver, right? So, in fact, about 28% of Canadians, or about 8 million people, age 15 or over, are unpaid caregivers. And a lot of the times people don't self-identify as caregivers, so they miss out on a lot of resources and help that's out there. And as I said, our organization, all of our services are free of charge, so we can help you navigate the journey for sure, right? You are the invisible backbone of the healthcare system. Okay, so again, you can just say it out loud if you want, but we just want to know what you do for your care recipient, okay? What kind of things do you do to help the person you're caring for? Bridget, do you?
Sure. I take her to any appointments. I do most of the cooking, and just help out with the house.
Okay. Yep.
Well, I do a little bit more than that. My mom is bedridden.
Oh, okay.
She'll be 97 this month. She's been blind since 13 years, like blind. She had an eye stroke, and so my husband and I do it together. She hasn't seen a doctor. I am very fortunate to have a family doctor that will identify with my way of communicating with him. I send him a fax, and he calls me.
Wow.
When he can. Sometimes I have to wait. But like all those little things, I find those as good steps, if you don't have to.
Right.
But my mom now, she can't feed herself anymore.
Okay.
And I'm the only one at home, and I have VOA, and I have private care.
Oh, good.
So I try to balance that out.
Yeah. And Carol, I know you travel a lot for your mother.
Yeah, do her wash and make her meals and do the dishes and things, and I'm thankful. My brother got old and he retired and he lives in the Bay, so I don't have to travel back and forth
Right.
so much.
So much. Yeah.
Makes it easy for me.
Yeah. And Muriel?
I do it all.
Yeah. That's what I want to hear.
I have to help him dress and undress and bathe.
Wow.
I do all the cookies, just the two of us. We have
Yeah.
no family nearby.
Wow.
And the cleaning,
Yeah.
everything.
So just for that little sample, you can see how much you really do in the run of a day, right? And how that can weigh on you. That's in addition to, okay, so you're caring for your mother, then you have to care about your own, cooking, cleaning, paying your own bills and stuff like that, right? So it can be a heavy load sometimes.
I know it's a lot of stress because I had a beautiful head of hair and I'm
Oh.
every time I comb it, it's painful.
Wow, that's too bad.
My mind's getting a lot of stress.
Well, funny you say that, because we're going to just talk about, all right, there we go, some of the effects of caregiving, okay? And, we do this because we love the person, right? We don't see it as a burden because it's just because out of love we're doing this, right? But it can be an emotional roller coaster. On one hand, caring for a family member demonstrates love and commitment, but can be very rewarding. But on the other hand, exhaustion, worry, inadequate resources, and continuous demands on can be enormously stressful. Relationships change, but not only with your care recipient, but with other families as well. So, if you're caring for a spouse, that dynamic has changed, right? You have to do with his chores that he used to do in the past, or him or her. So, that relationship has changed. If you're a child caring for a parent, while trying to raise a family, and a lot of the times, especially the baby boomer age, you have a family still that you have to worry about, plus your mother or father who you're caring for, right? So that can strain relationships on both sides. Other family members, and we do hear this a lot actually from family dynamics. In my family there's 8 brothers and sisters, 7 now. We lost a brother, but who does the lion's share of the work, right? Who picks up where other people leave off, right? So that can lead to a kind of a resentment towards your brothers and sisters, which nobody wants that, but it does sometimes happen. Your friends and your social life suffers majorly. If somebody keeps asking you out for coffee and you continuously say, sorry, I can't go, I need to do this, I need to do that, after a while they just stop asking after a while. It has a tremendous toll on your physical and mental health. So, people report, I gotta stop that, problems managing their caregiver responsibilities and caring for themselves too. So they might have sleep deprivation, poor eating habits, failure to exercise or stay in bed when ill. Sorry, Father, but as women, we are natural caregivers, and who looked after everybody when everybody else was sick, right? It was always us. And if we were sick too, we did it anyway. Postponement or failure to make medical appointments is a major thing. You get so wrapped up in your caregiving that you neglect your own needs, right? Or maybe something that's been going on and you just push it aside because you don't think it's important, right? It can also affect, for people who are still working, and there are a lot of people still working in caregiving, it can take away time from your work. Sometimes it can affect job promotions, or if you have to work part-time, it might even put your reliability into jeopardy, right? And again, if you're taking time off work, that's not income you have, so it might put a strain on your finances and your future finances as far as CPP goes, right, back down the road. So you can see how it can really affect your whole life, right? And that's what we're trying to do today is trying to just kind of put that in your mind that you can't be of service to yourself or anyone else if you burn yourself out. If you want to love, care, and be there for others, you have to first love, care, and be there for yourself. And that's what this whole workshop is about. I hope nobody's at the burnout stage, but we'll talk about that a little later. But if you are, we want to get you before you burn out. So it's time to look at how you're spending your energy, and to identify what you can do to bring your life back into balance. So neglecting yourself to meet others' needs can and will negatively affect your physical, emotional, and mental health. How can we find balance? Is first by recognizing what stress does and how it affects us. Okay. So I'm going to play a little video. That's not the video.
Cramming for a test, trying to get more done than you have time to do. Stress is a feeling we all experience when we are challenged or overwhelmed. But more than just an emotion, stress is a hardwired physical response that travels throughout your entire body. In the short term, stress can be advantageous, but when activated too often or too long, your primitive fight or flight stress response not only changes your brain, but also damages many of the other organs and cells throughout your body. Your adrenal gland releases the stress hormones cortisol, epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and norepinephrine. As these hormones travel through your bloodstream, they easily reach your blood vessels and heart. Adrenaline causes your heart to beat faster and raises your blood pressure, over time causing hypertension. Cortisol can also cause the endothelium, or inner lining of blood vessels, to not function normally. Scientists now know that this is an early step in triggering the process of atherosclerosis, or cholesterol plaque buildup in your arteries. Together, these changes increase your chances of a heart attack or stroke. When your brain senses stress, it activates your autonomic nervous system. Through this network of nerve connections, your big brain communicates stress to your enteric or intestinal nervous system. Besides causing butterflies in your stomach, this brain-gut connection can disturb the natural rhythmic contractions that move food through your gut, leading to irritable bowel syndrome, and can increase your gut sensitivity to acid, making you more likely to feel heartburn. Via the gut's nervous system, stress can also change the composition and function of your gut bacteria, which may affect your digestive and overall health. Speaking of digestion, does chronic stress affect your waistline? Well, yes. Cortisol can increase your appetite. It tells your body to replenish your energy stores with energy-dense foods and carbs, causing you to crave comfort foods. High levels of cortisol can also cause you to put on those extra calories as visceral or deep belly fat. This type of fat doesn't just make it harder to button your pants. It is an organ that actively releases hormones and immune system chemicals called cytokines that can increase your risk of developing chronic diseases such as heart disease and insulin resistance. Meanwhile, stress hormones affect immune cells in a variety of ways. Initially, they help prepare to fight invaders and heal after injury, but chronic stress can dampen the function of some immune cells, make you more susceptible to infections, and slow the rate you heal. Want to live a long life? You may have to curb your chronic stress. That's because it has even been associated with shortened telomeres, the shoelace tip ends of chromosomes that measure a cell's age. Telomeres tap chromosomes to allow DNA to get copied every time a cell divides without damaging the cell's genetic code. And they shorten with each cell division. When telomeres become too short, a cell can no longer divide, and it dies. As if all that weren't enough, chronic stress has even more ways it can sabotage your health, including acne, hair loss, sexual dysfunction, headaches, muscle tension, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, and irritability. So, what does all this mean for you? Your life will always be filled with stressful situations, but what matters to your brain and entire body is how you respond to that stress. If you can view those situations as challenges you can control and master, rather than as threats that are insurmountable, you will perform better in the short run and stay healthy in the long run.
So, you know, we don't want any of this to happen to you. You know, we want to try to curb it before it gets to that point, right? So what is stress? So we just learned from watching the video that while stress is normal, we have some good stress sometimes. People get married you know, a wedding is stressful as well, but that's a happy time, right? So, but, you know, it's still stressful. It's a normal response to demands and pressures on your life, but, you know, too much stress can send our bodies into a tailspin, damaging our health, our mood, our productivity, our relationships. You know, but it does keep us ready to respond when we need to respond. On the other hand, caregiver stress is felt as a result of your caregiving. Okay, so it's a direct response to your caregiving. It occurs when the demands of the situation, such as caregiving, become too much to handle. Family caregivers often have been shown less likely than people who are not caregivers to ignore their own health and self-needs, and making it more likely that they will be negatively affected by the stress they're feeling. So what it is, like I said, you're putting all your efforts into your person you're caring for and neglecting what might be going on inside yourself. And then even little things like, it mentioned heartburn, right? You know, a lot of people have heartburn, but it might be exacerbated more if you're upset more about your caregiving, right? If you're stressed more. So, in saying that, I meant to tell you. I forgot to tell you. Oh, bad. Everybody has a blue folder in front of them, and all the worksheets and everything are in your folder, and we'll go through them one at a time. They're all in order. So the very first one is going to be the Caregiver Stress test, okay? And it's folded there for a reason. Okay, so I want you to leave it folded, but I want you to just go through the questions that are at the top there and engage your stress levels as of right now. You know, you may take this test 3 different times and you're going to get 3 different results, right? But as of right now, how you're feeling, you can, you know, just answer the questions truthfully. Okay, I'll give you a few minutes to do that. So is everyone finished? All right, so now we're going to just see what the results mean, okay? And again, you know, this is not meant to be a formal mental health assessment or anything like that. This is just where you are at this moment, okay? So, you know, again, you could have one of the best days ever, right? And take the test and it would be completely different. But if you hit between 0 and 10, then you're probably doing pretty well, you know, and you're pretty balanced as far as your caregiving goes. 11 to 15, you may need to seek additional support and try to identify the things that are causing you the stress. So maybe you can, you know, head it off at the pass, right? 16 to 19, you may be experiencing some caregiver distress, and your responsibilities may already be taking a toll on your physical and mental well-being. It's important to talk to a healthcare provider, you know, or again, like I said, maybe join a support group. Maybe you're at that point where even just joining a support group and talking with other caregivers may help to release some of that stress, right? And if you're 20 plus, you may be experiencing caregiver burnout. And again, that's not where we want you to be. We want to try to get you before you reach that point. So at that point, though, it is important to talk to your healthcare professional, you know, and as well as some family and friends to try to get some help with your caregiving. I don't know if anybody wants to share their number at all. You don't have to, but I did do this one time, and there was a woman at 20 plus, and so we, you know, she was at that level. So I made sure afterwards that we kind of tried to find her some resources to help her get out of that, where she was at that moment. Right? So again, you know, you can take it at 3 different times, and it'll be 3 different numbers, right? Depending on where you're at. A lot of people who are caregiving, like I said, from day to day, it kind of goes smooth, and then until it doesn't, right? And the bottom falls out, and that's when you have to seek help. See if this will work now. Oh. So these are the steps we've identified as to help towards stress management, okay? Stress management is the foundation of caregiver self-care. So managing stress levels in your life is just as important as making sure that your care recipient takes their medicine on time or gets to doctor's appointments. And even though the thought of taking care of yourself first, as well as your loved one, or anyone else who depends on you, right, may be completely overwhelming, it is imperative that you understand that the more you take care of yourself, the more effective you can care for others. So the 5 steps are recognizing the warning signs, identifying the stressors in your life, learning some coping strategies, how to set a SMART goal, and focusing on the positive. We're going to take a closer look at the first 2 steps and to recognize the warning signs and identifying stressors. And then after the break, we'll resume the list, okay? So, the most dangerous thing about stress, and I mentioned this already, is how easy it can creep up on you, right? You can be going along and everything seems normal, familiar, and then all of a sudden, you notice it's affecting you, and it can take a heavy toll. Your body sends out your physical, emotional, mental, and behavioral warning signs of stress, but again, sometimes we don't recognize them. And again, everybody's different, and everybody's the way they deal with stress is different. So, everybody's not going to be affected the same way. For me, driving is stressful, and I mentioned this before, I think, but driving for me is stressful. Other people, they can drive and not have a problem, right? Especially in Sydney, but anyway. The more signs and symptoms you notice in yourself, the closer you may be to stress overload. So these are, okay, one at one. These are some of the cognitive signs of stress, okay? So you might be experiencing some memory problems, inability to concentrate. You may be feeling anxiety or fear, confusion, poor judgment, negative thinking. Negative thinking is a big one. We are sometimes really hard on ourselves, even though we're doing the best we can, but we always seem to think negatively instead of the positive way, right, of how we're doing. Like even some people can't accept a compliment sometimes, right? They never focus on the positive. Some of the emotional signs, excuse me. So you might be feeling overwhelmed, irritable, impatient, have emotional fatigue, frustration, anger, and again, like I said, you're looking after someone who you love, but it doesn't mean that you can't feel these emotions. And I think recognizing that you feel them is important, right? So that you can own them, so that you can do better. And because I know everybody gets impatient, and I have a brother-in-law who was looking after his mother, and he would ask her to do something and she wouldn't do it quick enough, so he would get impatient with her. But what he's not realizing is that's as quick as she could go. Right? So he has to change the way he is because she can't change the way she is. Right? So, and it was hard for him to recognize that. Some of the physical signs of stress can be excessive sweating, chest pain, heart palpitations, heartburn, again, like we said in the video, aches and pains, frequent cold and illnesses. Does anybody know why we put that in there? Yeah? Huh?
Because you run down.
Yeah? Exactly. Your immune system gets run down after a while. You know, maybe you're not sleeping well. You get run down and your immune system goes down. So any little thing out there, like COVID, unfortunately, it's going to get you, right? You're more susceptible to it. So we don't want you to feel like that. Some of the behavioral signs, so you may have an increase or decrease in appetite. For me, it's always an increase, unfortunately. Difficulty sleeping or sleeping too much, right? You may be using alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs, whether they're prescribed or not, right, to help you cope. And that's not always, that's a behavioral thing, right? And nervous habits, like biting your nails or stuff like that, right? So if you're experiencing any of these symptoms, make sure you discuss them with your doctor, because as is shown in the list, it's there's a lot of things that can go wrong, but it might be indicators of something else that's going on as well, right, in your body. So make sure you don't just attribute them to the stress, that you actually get checked out by a doctor. Okay, so stress, like caregiving, can be an emotional roller coaster. Keep in mind, caregiver stress can be and will be different for each person. So what causes the stress depends on, at least in part, to your perception of something that is stressful. Again, like I said, I hate driving in traffic. That's what stresses me. But for other people, it may not bother them at all. We're going to do a little activity. Okay, so the next page in your booklet there is life stress and caregiver stress. So I just want you to look at the two sides and write down one or two things that you experience as life stress, and maybe one or two as a caregiver stress. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. There's also a little sheet inside your booklet as well called internal and external stressors, so that might give you an idea of what kind of stressors you're looking at that you can kind of use as a guide, right? So while you're doing that, I just want to tell you a little story about my experience with caregiving. I was a caregiver to my mother first when she was diagnosed with dementia. I was only 35 then, so that was a long time ago. But I'm the baby of 8. So, and again, like I said, we had a big family, so everybody helped out. And what was one good thing about my family, we were all good at helping the girls anyway. Later, fast forward a few more years, and my husband of 28 years was diagnosed with brain cancer. And, he was 49 at the time and passed away at 53. And, again, talk about stress, right? I had 2 children in their 20s at this time. They were going to lose their father very young. And so I was worried about him, worrying about them, It was hard, and again, like we said, I took on the role of what he used to do because he could no longer do it. He tried to help out as much as he could, but he just didn't have the stamina to do it a lot of the time, right? Some of the things, and I don't know if somebody wants to share what they put as their guilt, or their sorry, the guilt was on my page there, as their stressor or their life stressor. Does anybody want to share? Just one?
Well, I worry about my own health
Mm-hmm.
and my spouse's health. He's had some health issues in the past few months, and I worry about managing everything, like cooking and cleaning.
Mm-hmm. So which one was which, though? So the life stress was your own?
Those are all life stress.
Yeah, okay. So what's your caregiver stress then?
Responding to what my mother asks for, and just coping with her
I know, it amazes me.
And also, I have some resentment towards her at the same time, because, you know, this is my retirement, and I'm finding a lot of my time is wrapped up with her.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
you know, a little bit of guilt there.
yeah, 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 absolutely. You hit all the points. Isolation is another big one. A lot of caregivers find that they feel like they're alone in this, right?
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to turn. Again, like I said before, your friends that you may have had in the past, because you're so wrapped up in your caregiving, they're gone. You know, so you don't do what you used to do in the past. Demands of constant care. Like I said before, pre-existing negative family dynamics can be another one too, right? I hear a lot from caregivers who have big families who don't help out, that, you know, they've just given up on the rest of the family, right? Because, you know, and how stressful is that, right? I love my family. I don't ever want to lose them, but sometimes you have to. Yeah, you know, because you can't deal with everything else that's going on because you have to focus. Little personal time. Again, guilt. Guilt is a major one for a lot of caregivers. You're feeling guilt over things. That's where I was thinking, because I feel guilt that, you know, why did this happen to him at this time in his life? You know, why am I the healthy one, right? You know, I shouldn't feel like that, and it's hard not to feel like that. But what we do, right? We do feel like that. So, you know, we're just trying to get you to recognize that these things, your stressors are out there, but you have to recognize what your stressors are. You know, I still had to work while I was caring for my husband. Like I said, he was 4 years and for the first 3.5 years, he was pretty good, right? I didn't have to worry about him being home alone and stuff like that, right? But I mean, I still had to work for a living. I wasn't doing this job. I'm an LPN in long-term care. I was at that time, that's what I was doing. So, you know, I had to go to work 12-hour shifts, back shifts, you know, I still had to do all that and worry about him, you know, being at home alone and stuff, right? But, you know, you just have to do sometimes what you have to do. But you shouldn't feel guilty or anything about it. So, when you can't control what's happening, the challenge is challenge yourself to change the way you respond to what's happening. You know, that's where your power is. Okay, so if nobody control everything, you can't control everything. You know, the pandemic here showed us, you know, we don't have control over everything. So you just have to, your reaction to how you respond to things, that's what's important. Yeah. And it's said that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And that's a pretty powerful statement, right? 90% of how you react to it. Because like I said, you can't change everything all the time. So the next we're going to look at the 4 A's of stress management. And as much as I don't like the graphic to this, I really like the 4 A's, okay? Because we can experience tremendous stress when our circumstances or people don't meet our expectations. You know, being a type A personality, I have pretty high standards. So, but nobody's going to do it like I do it, right? Because that's just me. So your care recipient will not exercise, you know, or maybe they're diabetic and they won't stop eating sweets. You know, and their blood sugars go crazy, right? Your siblings criticize you, you know, about how you're doing things, but yet don't offer to help a lot of the times. Your loved one may have received a life-limiting diagnosis. So our ability to control the situation and its outcome to our satisfaction can cause a lot of stress. So we all remember what Einstein said the definition of insanity is? Doing something over and over again and expecting different results. And we do that a lot, right? And we don't change anything. Yet how often do we have the same arguments, repeat the same complaints, and worry over the same things? So if you're able to change the situation, do so right away. But if you're not, you can try one of the 4 A's of stress management. So we're just going to go through each one as we go. And again, there's a page in your booklet there that you can kind of follow along. So stressors, both good and bad, are a part of everyday life. So using the 4 A's can bring you back into balance. So with patience and practice, again, it does take practice, you'll be able to pull out just the right tool to keep you on track. So first of all is to avoid. So again, this is not always easy, but try to avoid a stressful situation. If you do have a big family, and again they're not willing to kind of help out at all, lay down ground rules as to the people who either live with you or are visitors to your home, right? Protect the peace of the house. Ask them to keep the drama at the door, and respectfully ask them to change their behavior, and you have to be willing to do the same. Learning to say no is one of the hardest things for caregivers, because we are people pleasers, right? We want to help. That's what we do. If somebody comes and asks you to do something and you really don't want to do it, say no. And again, it's not always an easy thing, but practice makes perfect. and after a while, you get really good at it after a while. Take control of your surroundings. So, get organized. Fresh eyes can help you see an overwhelming task with more clarity. So get help if you need it. Prioritize and then ditch part of your list. So you can make a list, and the stuff on the top may be the priority, but some of it you'll see after a while, that can wait, or we can do away with that, or you can delegate it to someone else, right? Next is to alter a stressful situation. So maybe you can't avoid it, so maybe you can alter it. Clear communication is a big part. I had a family in Sydney. I was awestruck by what he did. He told me he did. They have a weekly, even though they don't all live in the same place, they have a weekly conference call, and they go over everything they have to do for their parents, and divvy it out amongst them, what each can do, right? So, maybe you're the only one doing it, but, if you have other people that can help, it might be good to try something like that. Eliminate the words such as always, never, should, and must. So, a lot of the times, we talked about negative self-talk. And not looking at the good things, but instead of saying you should have took mom to the grocery store today, or I'm always late for appointments, maybe you could try, since we didn't get out today, we'll try again next week, or maybe we'll leave 15 minutes early for the appointment, and that way we can get there in time, so we're not rushed. Ask for and accept help. Again, accepting help is hard for caregivers. Very hard. Understand that the person that you're asking, or you might have a home care provider that you're asking, they will not do the task like you would do it, but as long as they do it, have at it, right? Be gracious with your thanks about it. Adapting. You can't always adapt. You can always adapt to a stressful situation. So Adapting will involve changing your standards and expectations, and so you can help deal with the stress. So adjust your standards. Again, somebody's not going to clean the house like you are, but what's a little dust, right? Just don't put so much pressure on yourself. Family members are full of great suggestions a lot of the times, but offer no real help. But when they do have suggestions, maybe they can you can say to them, when will they commit to carrying out that terrific suggestion that they made, right? Adjust your expectations, and perhaps what you wish will simply not possible. So, you just have to make the best of a bad situation, or current situation, I should say. If you're visiting with your parent who has dementia, maybe, and they're not going to be able to converse like they used to, but so you have to, maybe you have to do a little different to make the visit just a little better for you, right? You can't change her again, like I said, so you have to change what you do and what you expect. So, you might bring around some photos and just kind of look at the photos with her, right? And just feel good about the moment that you have with them. And last is to accept. When the other A's, avoid, alter, and adapt, don't work, you just have to accept. So accepting things that they do not give up, but rather that you're going to live each day to the best of your ability as well as your care recipient. So it might be helpful to talk to someone, gain perspective, or vent feelings. Again, we have our support group that every month that, people say just getting that out at that group, is helpful to them. It just kind of lifts a weight off their shoulders. Forgive someone else or yourself. Again, that's a hard one to do sometimes. If other siblings and that are you did have a hard time with them, then you may not, feel like forgiving them, but it's only yourself you're hurting there, not them, because they don't really even care. Try to find a positive. Had the satisfaction of knowing you did everything you could, and would you expect more from somebody else, right? And look at the big picture. In accepting that you cannot control or manage or influence, you surrender and begin to live in the moment. Consider whether the issue will matter in even 1 or 5 years, right? You don't know where you're going to be in those 1 or 5 years. So, we're just going to talk a little bit about caregiver burnout before our break. But burnout is, again, I mentioned burnout before, and it is a very serious condition. It's brought on by emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion. Some people, most caregivers are prone to burnout. And people devote themselves to the unpaid care of, you caregivers are the most susceptible to the burnout. When you can no longer enjoy activities you previously enjoyed, and your emotional pain overshadows all pleasure, then it's time to seek help. Burnout reduces your productivity and saps your energy, but it can leave you feeling helpless, hopeless, clinical, and resentful. Again, like you say, resentful of what you're doing. Eventually you feel you have nothing left to give. So if you're a caregiver, it's essential that you get the help and support you need before burnout occurs. And that's why I'm glad you came here today, to get some maybe ideas. And the second part of this workshop is much more fun than all the bad stuff comes at the first. The second part is actually pretty good. So it's important to watch for the warning signs of caregiver burnout and take action right away when you recognize there is a problem. So these are just some signs of caregiver burnout. Energy, trouble relaxing, neglecting your own needs, frequent illnesses, again, you know, you might be run down, increasing impatient and irritable, constantly exhausted. Your life revolves around the caregiving, but gives you little satisfaction. That's a big one, right? You know, as much as you want to be doing this for your loved one, it just doesn't feel good, right? And you might feel overwhelmed, helpless, and hopeless. So if you're experiencing even a few of these warning signs, and like I said, these are the warning signs of burnout by this time, right? Then you should speak to your doctor, you know, or seek out counseling and talk to family members and friends about your concerns. Because once you burn out, caregiving is no longer a healthy option for you or the person you're caring for. So, you know, like we as much as we want to keep doing it, it's not going to be healthy for them or you, right? Because, and sometimes the option is taken out of our hands a lot of the times, right? You know, because the person you're caring for gets to a level of care that you just can't do anymore. So maybe it's time to shift. My father was my mother's primary caregiver. Like I said, we helped out whenever we could, but we were all working adults, right? So, and he was a diabetic himself and neglecting his own health again. So it took us stepping in to say, because we seen how he was deteriorating and how it was affecting his health. So it took us to step in to say, Dad, because he always promised Mom he would never put her in a nursing home, right? But you know, at the end, he had to put her in a nursing home. And once he did, it was totally different, you know, the dynamic of their relationship, right? Because he could go home, he could get his rest, he could go back every day, and he did. He went in every single day to that nursing home. He played the piano and sang. He was a keyboard, and he was a lovely singer. And you know, he brought his keyboard in and played for everybody on the unit. He brought snacks in for everybody, you know. And like I said, this brought him more joy, and his health started to improve, right? And again, he did it every single day. He'd go in there. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary at the home she was in. They put on a big party for them and everything, you know. So it's not, he didn't recognize the signs of burnout, but we did. And like I said, we stepped in to make sure that, yeah, and the quality of their visits was much better, right? So we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. You can go to the washroom, have a snack. There's some resources down back there too if anybody wants to take some of the resources. One of them I want to mention is if anybody's looking after someone with dementia, they're looking for survey participants, and you can just take the survey in a pre-stamped envelope and just mail it in later if you like. There's no obligation. I just put it back there just in case you're interested. But we're going to have a 15-minute break, have a cup of tea and a sweet, and we'll be back at 2:15. All right, everyone, we're going to get started again. So again, like I said, we're going to look at the next 3 steps. So learning coping strategies, setting goals, and focusing on the positive. As I said, you know, we're going to learn about coping strategies, goal setting, and looking at the positives associated to caregiving. So we're going to start things off by just, again, watching a short little video. Again, we got a commercial.
Stress is usually seen as something we need to avoid. This is not true.
Hold on a second.
Our body's stress hormone cortisol to rise and fall throughout the day. Stress helps us wake up in the morning, helps us focus, learn, and remember new things. It's when people experience too much stress and start having difficulties coping that stress becomes a problem. High levels of stress can disrupt the natural changes in the body's stress response system and start to affect our physical and mental health. Over time, accumulated stress can result in false FFF response activations. When trying to measure our stress tolerance, the bucket analogy can be helpful. Our stress tolerance, or the size of our bucket, is a product of our genes, personality, and life experiences, and its size varies from person to person. The water in this analogy is the combination of all the stress in your life. We use the coping strategies we have available to keep our bucket from overflowing. They are like taps that allow water to drain from the bucket. Stress can include training, work, school, relationships, finances, moving, changing jobs, or the loss of a loved one. Both positive and negative experiences will affect the water level. A big bucket can hold more water or stress before it overflows. With a smaller bucket, less water is required for the water or stress level to become critical. While you can't change the size of your bucket, you can make life adjustments to reduce water coming in. You can also learn new coping strategies and stress management techniques to allow water to drain out. Mind tools, exercise, quality sleep, relaxation, and sharing your feelings with friends are some examples of effective water taps. Staying up late, sleeping in, drugs, inactivity, procrastination, suppressing or ignoring problems are examples of unhelpful coping strategies or false taps. They might give temporary relief, but actually result in water flowing back into your bucket.
Now we're going to talk a little bit about coping strategies. So, okay. So when you feel the effects of stress weighing you down, it's like lugging a heavy bucket around, right? Becoming heavier by the minute. So too much stress can make your caregiving journey even more difficult. But wellness doesn't just happen. You have to make it happen. And that's an important statement. As a group, so we're going to do individual. Okay, so your next sheet in your paper, in your booklet there, is called Coping Strategies. Okay, so what I want you to do is take a look at the questions on that sheet and come up with a coping strategy that you use, to help cope with some of your stress. Now, an example is of someone going to bingo with friends, okay? So write down your coping strategy first and then go back and answer the 4 questions, okay? Is it effective immediately? So are there long-term effects? Is it risk-free? And is it affordable? So, but just think about what you do now as a coping strategy and you only have to put 1 in there, but just kind of think about those 4 questions as you do write it. Could be like walking the dog, right? Is walking the dog effective immediately? Yeah, get you outside in the fresh air, get you some exercise. Are there long-term benefits? Well, yeah, exercise and fresh air help your mind and body. Is it risk-free? Well, depending on where you walk, I guess it can be pretty well risk-free. And it is affordable. Other than feeding the dog once in a while, it can be fairly healthy coping strategy, right? So just come up with 1 or 2 that you think that you're doing now as a coping strategy. Depending on how much time you have in the run of a day, you may only have like 5 minutes to take a break. So, you might want to do some stretching or exercising, just even a short walk, right? 10-minute breaks can give you, I don't know how much of a power nap you can get in 10 minutes, but some people say it works. Having a cup of tea, with friends is, writing in a journal is another one where a lot of people try. If you have something like a 15 to 30-minute break, you might be able to go for a longer walk. Gardening. A lot of people like gardening. I'm not one of them, but a lot of people like it. Reading a book, painting or sketching or woodworking. I know, Jeanette, you do a lot of crafting, don't you?
Well, I used to, but then the stress got to me.
Oh! That was an extra stressor?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
it is relaxing, but not when you're under the stress I was under.
Yeah.
Normally, that's how I cope with every life stress.
Okay.
This kind of thing.
Yeah. For me, it's cooking. I like to cook. I like to feed people for some reason. Yeah. So does anybody want to share one thing they do to help with their coping? Go ahead.
I walk for an hour every day with my neighbor.
Wow. And did it fit into all your categories as being a safe coping strategy? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to have someone to walk with, too.
Yeah. Well, she graciously retired at Christmas.
Okay. Well, that's
Not
good.
just for me, but
No.
because I was having trouble getting out and walking, but she makes me,
Yeah.
you know, gives me the urge to push it up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's nice, right?
Yeah.
You've got company and you talk about things and before you know it, you're walking.
Yeah, that's right. An hour, yeah, is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else want to share?
I go for a walk every day, whenever the hour presents itself.
Yeah.
Because sometimes something's happening with mom and I can't go at that time, and the weather and all this, and COVID, but I made a lot of friends on the sidewalk during COVID.
There you go.
That was my social hour.
Yeah.
And I, even though we were there, we were outside, we
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
have that, but we were 6 feet.
Yeah.
And I used that as a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't use that and come home and listen to all the, the news and all that. And I find listening to the news can put a person down if everything affects you.
Yeah.
So it affects the environment you're in your house.
Absolutely.
And then, you got to be careful and you got to do this, well, I can't do that because the news says that. But sometimes you need to do it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you need to, and I like journal writing when I remember to do it. If you can't talk to somebody, you put it down on
That's right.
paper.
Yeah.
And it's very important. I'm a palliative care
Oh.
volunteer for years and years, but I can't do it while I did it with mom because I couldn't just leave. But I had an in-hospital patient for my first patient was a Scottish guy. And I'm French, and I tell Nancy, I said, you matched me with a Scottish guy. Now, what am I going to do? I don't know what, we have nothing in common. So I said, I was kind of scared when I went in that room. But the lessons that I learned, what he taught me, is that you don't know, you always learn something.
That's right.
Wherever you go. But it's how you, like to me, I find it's how you perceive it. Am I just going to take what I got today and forget about it? No, I don't do that. I try not to do that.
No.
So, and then we have a group of girls that we've been meeting together since 31 years, the same girls.
Wow.
Since 31 years, once a month. So we have a meal and we go to somebody's house or we go out to the restaurant. We couldn't go to the restaurant all during COVID and almost had a heart attack. But I find that all these things, it's my situation isn't as bad as some. Because my mom is very grateful for everything that's done for her. Even though it's only in a glass of water. And she sleeps a lot, so it gives me time to do the things I need to do. I'm like you, I like to bake. I bake for everybody. I fix clothes. And I make puzzles. Like, since COVID has taught me that I could do more things than I do. Because I don't go out. I don't like shopping.
No.
So I didn't miss the store thing. And I find that a lot of that in the house, I learned to love my house more.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? You're a woman after my own heart. Because that sounds like me.
That learning all the things that I learned, I said, nobody else is going to help
No.
me. And I'm alone in my caregiving, just my husband and I. And my mom requires a lot of care because she needs 2 people to live. And I don't have to live yet because you need 2 people to use it.
Yeah.
And I can't always have that. So until that she's incontinent and I have to be able to do that, well, I'm just going to play by ear.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't leave anybody home. I have to make sure it's somebody that can handle it.
Yeah.
Home care don't do too much lifting.
Yeah.
So that's, that's okay. I'm okay with mine, the way things are.
Okay, that's good.
I guess you have to do something, give something to your situation for yourself.
Yep,
I developed on
absolutely.
yourself and the rest
That
of
is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Again, there's no one size fits all. Like I said, we've heard a couple different, examples of what we like to do, kind of thing. So we're just going to go through a few coping strategies that we've identified. So you might want to seek out help. Again, our caregiver stress, being here right now is you sought help with your coping. But I forgot to mention in the front of the book, your pamphlet there's all the support groups I have across Cape Breton. And as you can see, I have one in Port Hawkesbury here. So, anybody who wants to join, just give me a holler, just so I know you want to, come, and I'll send you all the information, right? Talking with others and joining a support group is, you can find someone who gets and understands what you're going through, right? It's likely it's going to be another caregiver that knows what you're going through, right? Support groups are often a great way to communicate with others dealing with similar situations, even though they might be dealing with somebody with dementia, someone with mental illness, someone with a physical disability. Our caregiving is pretty well all the same, right? And a lot of the times you can learn something. You can learn something that worked for them in a support group, right? And maybe try it out. Acknowledging your feelings and talking about your concerns relieves stress. Like you say, journaling too does that as well. But talking honestly with family, many may help see exactly what's happening, and you can identify what they can contribute to the care. Educate yourself. Learn as much as you can about your family's illness, your family member's illness or health condition. Sometimes it can be a double-edged sword sometimes. The first thing I did when my husband was diagnosed with brain tumors, and they told me what type it was, I Googled it. Didn't like what I seen, right? But it prepared me for what was down the road, right? As an LPN, I kind of knew what was going to face me, but it was good to know kind of like the process. So I could plan. I could set my own goals and marks, right, for the future, right? Look for support from the other health care professionals, and you might want to contact the other organizations, like Alzheimer's Society or mental health associations or community health teams, because they have resources sometimes that can help you out as well. Attend to your own personal health. That's physical, mental, and spiritual. So, talking with other people is good, and it de-stresses you sometimes. But you should, nobody eats healthy all the time, but eating a healthy diet and drinking lots of water, scheduling some exercise into your day, like everybody said, they kind of walk, walking is the best exercise you can have, really, because it just gives you, and if you do it alone or with someone, because if you're doing it alone, then it gives you time to just, think about things and, on your own, right? But physical activity plays a key role in reducing and preventing the effects of stress and depression as well, right? Now, hopefully the weather's going to get nicer nowadays, and we can, get out more to do that kind of thing, right? And exercise promotes better sleep as well, right? You might want to consider spiritual practice if you are spiritual, depending on your beliefs. Prayer, meditation, or just being out with nature. It can be good for you, right? Or, spending time in a place of worship such as this, you might want to join the CWL or a church group or even the choir, but depending on your own beliefs, right? I'm going to get a frog now. Engaging in self-care practice. So relaxation techniques, and a lot of people find this one the hardest, okay? So relaxation techniques often have shown to effectively combat stress and ease tension. So relaxation and deep breathing exercises often become easier with practice. And deep breathing, taking a few deep breaths periodically throughout the day, helps you absorb more oxygen, right? And more oxygen means your body will work better. And you feel better physically and mentally. So just before we go on to the meditation part, maybe we'll just do a little bit of deep breathing, just as a bit of practice. Okay, so I just want you to close your eyes right now. Sit with your feet, on the floor. And just take a deep breath in. And let it out slowly. Slow as you can. And then take another deep breath. And let it out. And one more. And so already you can feel how just feeling your chest going up and down. It feels good, right? And getting that extra oxygen in there. Meditation is another, and a lot of people do find meditating. Some people it works and some people it doesn't. But what I love about the video I'm going to show you next is the fact that meditation is about practice, okay? It's I'll play the video because he says it better. Dan Harris says it better.
Hey, I'm Dan Harris. We're going to teach you how to meditate now. Despite what you may have heard, meditation does not involve joining a group, paying any fees, wearing any special outfits, sitting in a funny position, or believing in anything in particular. It is simple, secular, scientifically validated exercise for your brain. You don't have to do it yet, but just so you know, here are the 3 steps. 1, sit with your back straight and your eyes closed. 2, notice the feeling of your breath coming in and going out. Pick a spot where it's most prominent. Usually that's your nose or your chest or your belly. And just focus your full attention on the feeling of your breath coming in and going out. Now, as soon as you try to do this, your mind's going to go nuts. You're going to start thinking about, what am I going to have for lunch? Why did I say that dumb thing to my boss? Your brain's going to go nuts, and that's fine. The whole game is to notice when you've gotten lost and to start over. And then to start over again, and again, and again. And every time you do that, it's like a bicep curl for your brain, and it shows up on the brain scan. Scientists have found this in the lab. It's also, by the way, a radical act. You're breaking a lifetime habit of walking around in a fog of projection and rumination, and you're actually focusing on what's happening right now. So full disclosure, I'm not actually a trained meditation teacher. However, we have found a ringer. Her name is Sharon Salzberg. She's a pioneer. She helped bring mindfulness meditation to America, and here she is.
I'm going to guide you in a very short foundational exercise in meditation. If you can sit comfortably, see if your back can be straight without being strained or overarched. You can close your eyes or not, wherever you feel most at ease. See if there's a place where you feel the breath most distinctly. Maybe that's the nostrils or the chest or the abdomen. If you find that place where the breath is strongest for you, clearest for you, you can bring your attention there and just rest. See if you can feel one breath without concern for what's already gone by, without moving forward for even the very next breath, just this one. And if images or sounds or sensations or emotions arise, if they're not very strong, if you can stay connected to the feeling of the breath, just let them flow on by. You're breathing. It's just one breath. If something comes up that is really strong, it pulls you away, you get lost in thought, spun out in a fantasy, or you fall asleep, don't worry about it. We say the most important moment in the whole process is the next moment, after you've been gone, you've been distracted. That's the place where we practice letting go. It's what one of my teachers called exercising the letting go muscle. We practice letting go gently of whatever has taken us away. And we shepherd our attention back to the breath to begin again. The whole training is letting go and beginning again, and letting go and beginning again. You don't have to feel like you failed or you've done something wrong. It's the conditioned habit of our attention to get distracted, to stray. And so each time we discover that, we have this amazing opportunity to let go and start over. It's just one breath. When you feel ready, you can open your eyes, or lift your gaze. Hey Dan, how did you do?
How'd I do? It went the way it always goes for me. I was able to focus on the breath for a nanosecond or two, then I got lost, then I started over, then I got lost, then I started again. And that's the whole game. It's the whole game. Meditation is unlike anything you do in the rest of your life. Failure is actually success. As I said, the whole game is just trying, failing, starting again, failing, starting again. Big thanks to Sharon Seltzer. And by the way, if you're interested in learning how to meditate, which you should be, Sharon has written a brilliant book for beginners. It's called Real Happiness. Check it out. Here's my advice, and Sharon backs this up. You should be meditating every day. 5 to 10 minutes a day, that's it. This doesn't require some giant investment. I don't care how busy you are, you have 5 to 10 minutes to give this a shot. I guarantee you it will make a big difference, and if it doesn't, send me a note on Twitter and tell me I'm an idiot.
So before I seen that video, I thought meditating was all about, you know, like you said, being in that moment and staying in that moment. I didn't realize that it was about starting over and everything, right? So it's a pretty neat exercise, really, for sure. And you know, you might want to try it. It might be one of the things you might want to try over and over again. There is a self-care exercises in your booklet as well that can help with some cultivating mindfulness and in breathing exercises. But the next one I'm going to talk about is asking for and accepting help. So learning to ask for and accept help is central to self-care. Asking for it, it's not easy, but you know, it's an important skill to develop, and it does take practice. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. when you're asking for help, it's important to be specific about your request. And that's why we included, the next thing in your workbook is a sign-up sheet. So the sign-up helper sheet can maybe help you with that. If you have someone, you know, that you can rely on, it may not be family, it could be a friend, you know, or it could be another family member, but this is just an example, but there's a blank one as well on the other side. You know, that you can put what needs to be done and ask, you know, and when it needs to be done, and then ask, you know, who can do this for me, right? Maybe they can take one thing off your list, right? Another way to do that is the gift. How many times have someone asked you, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Christmas, right? And you know, sometimes it might be just time that you want and help. So we've included just something just for you, a list there, and you can just read through it later. But it's, you know, you can make up your own list of things that maybe, like I said, if your family member asks, what is it you want for Christmas? Maybe it's you know, baked treats, you know, or a little lecture that you can freeze so that you can have some on hand when you need it, right? So it's just a little list that you can use as part of your asking for help. The next one is avoiding procrastination. Putting something off, everybody knows, putting something off is not really helpful. You know, you can you can prevent more stress by not putting things off. So, you know, make decisions. Don't not make decisions. You know, make the decision and go with it. Make sure you're you know, set a weekly schedule maybe, and scheduling even in some time for yourself as well. That does not want to work for you. Create your support team. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be family or friends, but it could be, you know, a doctor, a social worker, a pharmacist, or even people in your support group, right? You know, reach out to people you think will be willing to be part of your team, and put them on the list and with their contacts. So maybe you just want to talk with someone someday, and you know, you can, if you have the number of somebody you can reach out to, maybe give them a call. Acceptance. Caregiving can trigger a host of difficult emotions, including anger, fear, resentment, guilt, helplessness, and grief. So recognize that you're doing your very best, but that there may be times that you can't change something. Acceptance is a process that takes time, but you need to remind yourself to be patient and kind with yourself. As I mentioned before, sometimes you lose help. You lose touch with a friend that you haven't seen for a while. So we've included in your folder as well a letter to a friend, and you know, sometimes you just writing things down in a letter that you may or may not want to send, right? Just writing them down in a letter might be just enough to get you through, you know, a bad time, maybe if you're going through a bad time. I told this just recently, a lady in Glace Bay, she's having family issues, and I told her to write a letter to them as to how she's feeling, right? And she said she did do that, and it made her feel a lot better, right? Because there was a lot of tension going on in her life at that time, so, and it did make her feel better. Respite, again, respite is just a break, right? So if you have a chance to get a respite at any time, you know, try to. You can, again, reach out to family and friends, plan for an in-home or like a, you know, a facility-based respite or something, just to give yourself a break. The next handout there is the links and resources sheet. And so what we did with that one is put a lot of the respite care that you can seek out is in the form of links that you can go to on your computer and maybe see if you can arrange some of the respite. I don't think there's any day programs in this area, are there? In Sydney, we have one in Sydney, one in Glace Bay, and one in North Sydney home, and they're adult day programs. And what happens is, the person goes there for a period of usually like 9 to 3 or something, and they feed them lunch. It costs about $15 a day, $15 to $20 a day, to do that. But look at the time that could give you during the run of a day. And again, I don't know if there's any in this area. I don't think so, because I haven't heard of it. But if anybody knows of anything like that, please let me know as soon as possible, because I can. I think one lady tried to open one in Lordways, but because of the funding, she would have to charge too much, because the other ones that's why they're only $15 to $20 a day. They're subsidized, so that's why she couldn't keep it going. But, and last but not least, laughter. I don't know about you, but to me, laughter, we say, is really the best medicine. And I know you would remember the Carol Burnett one where she dressed up with Gone with the Wind and with the curtain, and she left the curtain running. It's one of my favorites. But, being able to look at that and laugh. And if you get a chance, the one below that is More Cowbell. I don't know if anybody ever heard of Saturday Night Live skit called More Cowbell. Look it up on YouTube, because it is hilarious. Okay, so and like you say, sometimes you just need a good laugh, right? More Cowbell. More, M-O-R-E. Just More Cowbell. Christopher Watkins, that's his, I need more cowbell. And you got to know Christopher Watkins to know that. So we say the most wasted days are the ones without laughter. So once you start finding a small amount of time to do things for yourself, you realize how good it feels, right? And it can lead to trying to get larger chunks of time to for your own needs. So always start small and just see how it goes. So now we're going to talk about number 4, which is setting SMART goals. So why set goals? Goal setting is effective because it helps people to focus their attention on making changes. So setting goals encourages forward thinking and helps you identify priorities. Achieving short-term goals encourages to set longer-term goals. And achieving goals motivates us to build confidence in our abilities. And I don't know if anybody's seen SMART goal before, but you can use it in a lot of different aspects of your life, not just your caregiving wise, but I know I'm in Weight Watchers, and that's one thing they do. They set a why first, why are you doing this, and then they get you to set some SMART goals, right? Your goals should motivate you to make changes. They will motivate you, I should say, and if they are personal and meaningful to you, if they challenge you but are still realistic, not too hard, not too easy. If they're specific, so you have to be clear about the idea what you want to do, and tied to an action or plan to help you stay on track. So effective goals are often described by the acronym SMART. So using the SMART goal activity when you're formulating your own personal goals, use an example. Okay, so it has to be specific. So the goal you set, yes, is for specific. So it answers the question, what exactly are you going to do? And again, if you make it vague, you're not going to accomplish your goal. So it has to be very specific. So, and it can't be too hard. And it can't be too easy, again. So you have to pick something, okay, well, let's say like walking every day, right? But walking every day, no, that's still not specific enough, right? Walking for 30 minutes every day, right? So you want it to be exactly what you're going to do. Again, okay, so then the measurable comes in. So it answers the question, how long are you going to do it? So in that area, you're going to put 30 minutes, right? If a goal is measurable, it can tell you if you're succeeding. So if I go walking for 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week, it gives you a goal. It's to clear, you can clearly measure that, right? A measurable goal can be tracked and gives you valuable feedback as to how you're doing. Feedback is a key to achieving your goals and making effective behavioral changes. And that's what it's about, right? Behavioral changes. It also, so the A is for attainable. So it has to be doable. So if you're on crutches and you set the goal to walk 30 minutes a day, it's probably not going to be very doable, right? So, you have to be realistic about what your goal is going to be. You can challenge yourself a bit, but don't try to overdo it, right? Realistic or relevant. The R can be either realistic or relevant, which kind of means the same thing. But goals need to relate directly to what you're doing and what you want to do. So if you don't like walking, you're not going to set a goal to walk, right? Because then you're not going to do it. So when you're developing your goals, take into account your abilities and your circumstances, as well as personal circumstances such as other commitments, right? And T is for timely or time-based. So it answers the question, when are you going to do it? So you have to set a time that you're going to start. So what's today, May 4th? So May 5th, I'm going to start walking the 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week, and then you can measure how that goes. Your goal should have a time frame, so a long or medium-term goal may specify the number of weeks or months needed to achieve your goal. Again, like I said, in it's called WW now, it's not called Weight Watchers, but WW, they don't like setting weight goals, because not everybody's going to lose, all the time, right? So, they try to set goals that are other than weight, because you get frustrated if you don't lose weight week after week after week, right? But, so a short-term goal may specify that you will be doing something for a specific period of time or a specific number of times. So again, I passed there in your packet there, there's the SMART goal worksheet. There's a sample worksheet as to, some goals that people set out, just to give you an example of, what, and I like this one, to acknowledge my value as a person, as a caregiver, and to raise my self-esteem. I will say 5 positive things about myself aloud in the mirror each morning and each evening. I will track this on my online calendar, and I will begin to feel more confident and capable. Commit this every day and put in reminders on my bathroom mirror, adjust my schedule to make time when I get up and before I go to bed, and remind myself that this night will take a while at first. Okay. And I must exercise kindness, compassion to myself, and I must let go of past mistakes and shortcomings for the few minutes. It's just must be patient with myself. And when's you going to do it? Every single day. So again, like I said, it doesn't have to be a physical goal you set. It could be just something, you want to tell yourself, right? Keep in mind that a goal, and I say this all the time, in nursing we have this saying, if it's not written down, it didn't happen, right? Because when we chart, we chart things that happen. So keep in mind that a goal is not written down. is just a wish. And so 95% of the goals that are accomplished when they are written down. So you can use that sheet, the empty sheet we gave you, to set your goals, you know, and you know, it might take a while to, but you just keep practicing. Again, we as we said before, you know, this is a practice. Self-care is a practice that you have to do over and over again. So it's important that you keep trying. So, last but not least, number 5 is focusing on the positives. So we are hardwired to remember and focus on negative things. I mentioned that earlier. That happen in our lives and in our world. Look at the news every day. Yeah.
I have to go.
Oh, okay.
I have been alone and I told my deputy to get down by 3.
Okay. Can you just make sure you fill out your evaluation? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Mira, I'm going to follow up with you, okay?
Yes, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Story,
The last thing is focusing on the positives, and I remember you already just told me about focusing on the positives, so remember that one. Oh, okay.
That's all right, darling, don't worry. I don't know how they'll make out because I never leave them this long.
No.
I have nobody with them.
Well, just save your thing there, and if you win, I'll get it to you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Muriel. This is our last little bit too, so just. So we are hardwired to remember and focus on the negative things that happen in our lives, but you know we have to work on finding the positives. Again, you know it's not always easy to find positive, you know, because if you're bombarded every time with negative, it's hard trying to find the positive sometimes. I know, again, when my husband got sick, and it was 11 years yesterday that he passed away, but my daughter wrote a very nice thing on Facebook, and one of the things she wrote was about the fact that because we kind of knew what was coming, it gave us time to focus on our family and do things that we probably wouldn't have done at that time. So, you know, those 4 years we had a lot of family trips. He's a Montreal Canadiens fan, and I'm sorry for anybody who's not, but anyway. But we went to Montreal and seen a couple of hockey games, you know, because that was what he enjoyed. You know, so that's the things that stay with us. We actually have a Montreal sign on his headstone. Because, and, you know, so that's the kind of things you have to think about, right? It's positive things that came out of, because that family trip, we're never going to forget that family trip, right? And we're going to think about that forever. And that's what we try to focus on. It can be one of the hardest things to do, you know, when coping with stress, but when we change the way we think about things that happen in our life, we change how we feel. Remember the quote from earlier, life is 10% of what happens and 90% how you react to it. So, you know, dwelling on the negative it often adds to our stress, of course, right? And takes away from your motivation to make things better. It's proven that a positive attitude makes a difference in overall feelings and can change your outlook, right? And again, it's not an easy thing to do, but again, practice makes perfect. And we use this analogy a lot, and I hear this a lot in other different life things, but keep this image in mind when you're trying to take care of yourself. I'm sure you've all seen the image, if you're ever on an airplane, you know, the oxygen story. So when you're on a plane, the mask descends, what do they say? Put it on you first. Because what happens is, if you don't put it on you first, and you pass out, how are you going to help other people, right? And it's the same with caregiving. If you don't focus on you first, and again, it's human nature to not focus on you, right? We want to help our person. But, you know, when we first help ourselves, we effectively help others. So it's not selfish to put yourself first. Make your life a priority because it will put you in a better position to help others. Caring for yourself is one of the most important and one of the often forgotten things you do as a caregiver. You need, when your needs are taken care of, and the person you care for will benefit as well. It is your right, it is your right to be healthy, and if you're healthy, your care recipient will be privileged to have you continue to care for them. Again, you know, we're not saying it's going to take away all your stressors or anything, but you got to remember to take care of yourself first. So a few things to remember. It's okay. So I did collect all your papers up, and you know, we're just going to see maybe if we did touch on some of the things, coping strategies, how to keep calm, how not to rush, and how to sleep. Well, I wish I knew that one. Because I'd love to be able to sleep too. But again, you know, we did touch on a lot of coping strategies. Things like respite and everything, and it's available. You know, things like that we can deal on a one-on-one basis. I'd rather do it that way because it's you know, in an environment like this, it's just too hard to be specific kind of thing. We did hear about how others cope with some of the things that they do. Funding programs, respite, and elderly daycare. Again, I don't think there's any in this area, but you know, I will check into it. Setting boundaries. I like that one because, again, setting boundaries is part of your self-care, right? Learning to say that no. Set up your goals and making them, you know, so that you can set the boundaries to where you want to be. It's not always going to be easier. So I think the rest, yeah, we pretty well touched on stress and coping, you know, with a lot of it. So in summary, I'm going to just say managing stress is all about taking care. Taking charge of what your thoughts, your emotions, your schedule, and your environment, and the way you deal with problems. So stress management involves changing the stressful situation, if you can, changing your reaction, if you can't change the situation, and taking care of yourself and making time for rest and relaxation. So taking care of you and putting yourself first is not selfish. I say that to people all the time. You know, what your job you're doing is very important. It's not selfish to want to care for yourself as well. In fact, one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, your family, and your care recipient is when you begin to take better care of yourself. It allows you to have more to give to others. So recognizing one's need for help is not a sign of weakness, but one of strength, right? You know, again, asking for help is hard, but it's so important. Treating yourself well and caring for your body, your mind, your spirit, it will help make you a better partner, parent, friend, and caregiver. So if nothing changes if you change nothing. But it's up to you to do it and start it, right? It's for yourself. So I just want to thank everyone, and I'm going to take questions if you have any questions or anything, but if you wouldn't mind filling out the evaluation, that's part of our funding through our Department of Seniors, is doing workshops like this across the province and getting feedback, and because they want something measurable, right, for our feedback. So if you could fill out the evaluation, and like I said, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Maggie?
Yeah?
I have
Mhm.
You don't have continuing care Nova Scotia on there. Because that's one department that I have gone through to get Respite.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, home care is.
Home care, but home care, you always get someone different.
Yeah.
With continuing care, you can actually hire someone privately.
Yeah. And okay, I'll address that. Well, home care is continuing care. Okay? Okay, so how continuing care works is, okay, they come out and do the assessment, right? Then they decide what services you're going to get, right? Up to, it could be 100 or 150 hours a month, depending on the situation and your coordinator. And then, okay, so home care is one of those services, okay? Respite is another one. Now, it could be an in-home respite, like having home care come for the 2 hours that you may need them, right? Or it may be a facility-based respite, right? Where they, okay, so like my mother-in-law went into a facility for a week-long respite, you know, and it has to be arranged over time in that, right? But it is still continuing care. Like, I think we put home care there just because they're the ones who do the respite. But they are contracted by continuing care to do the respite. And I understand that what you're, okay, so the program you're talking about was, okay, since COVID happened, okay, so I'll back up a little bit. Okay, so there's a program called Supportive Care Program, but that's for people with cognitive impairment, okay? So that can be up to $1,000 a month for you to provide your own care, all right? But when COVID hit and home care got kind of backed up and they didn't have enough home care people to come out and do the home care and respite and stuff like that, they decided what is called is the extended care program. And what they did was offered people a certain amount of money every month. Okay, so they decided how much time you needed for the month. Say it was 50, we'll go to 100 hours just because it's easier math. 100 hours at $25 an hour, they would give you $2,500 a month to pay for, and you would have to go out and find your own private care, right? Now, they did that as part of COVID relief, right? Because at that time, and it was only supposed to be until like March of this year, but they kept extending it. Yeah. But, so if that's the program you're thinking about, is that what, yeah. And every person's situation is going to be different. Because you're not always going to be eligible for every program, right? But continuing care still has to come out and do the assessment to see if you are eligible for the different programs. There's also another one called the self-managed care, and that's for people with disabilities. So you have one that's for cognitive impairment, and there you have this self-managed care that's for physical impairment, okay? But they work pretty well the same way. They decide how many hours a month you'll need, and then they give you that amount of money to pay for your own care. And depending on, like I said, you know, your situation, like, here's my thing with continuing care. If you have a good coordinator, you're going to hear about every one of these programs, right, at the time you need them. And I shouldn't say that if you have if you have a knowledgeable and, you know, somebody who's going to tell you all the programs. But sometimes you have to dig to get to know these programs. That's where we come in. Because we are, like I said, we're funded through the continuing care branch of the Department of Health and Wellness kind of thing, right? Or now the Department of Seniors. So we're funded through them, okay? So that's what we do. We kind of navigate people through this process and let them know what's out there, what's available for them. Now, not everybody's going to be eligible for all the different programs, but we make them aware of them at least so that they can go at least ask the question, right? Ask their coordinator, will I be eligible? I know of, excuse me, a lady actually in this area, and she was getting home care, but it wasn't a good situation. And like you said, it could be a different person every time. You know, maybe if it's a dementia situation, that person doesn't want a different person every time. So you can provide your own care. If you decide to go through the supportive care, you can provide your own person to come in, right? You can hire your own. But the lady up this way, her home care situation was that she had a physical impairment. So for her, it was more about, you know, there was nothing wrong mentally with her. But so her, it was more about getting the help when she needed it, at the time she needed it. So I mentioned the self-care program to her. She mentioned it to her coordinator, and the coordinator didn't know anything about the program. So I sent her all the documents, and she sent them to her, you know, and lo and behold, she's now on the supportive care, or not supportive, she's on the self-managed care. So they, you know, and it's working out wonderful for her, right? But again, that's where we come in a lot of the times, is to make sure people know about what programs are out there and what questions to ask. We have a really good paper that we made up on before the continuing care assessment, it's called. And so we've laid out, you know, things that you need to do and questions you need to ask before the coordinator comes for the assessment. Because that way, you know, you kind of know what you're facing when they come, right? You get ahead of the game. So I hope that answered your question, did I? But there are a lot of different programs, but yeah. Any other questions?
I think your handouts are pretty informative.
Yeah.
So from there, you can reach out to where.
Yep. To me.
Even though all our situations are different.
Oh, absolutely.
It's,
yeah.
We're all doing the same thing.
Yep.
Like we're all doing it in one way or another, and we all need, at some point, some relief.
Yep. Yeah.
And sometimes you have to go. When my coordinator changed, I had one and I had another one. And she came home and I had mom at the table, and her mom is still, even at her age, was still able to, not comprehend everything, but still able to answer the most common questions, you know. And she said, you know, I'm going to get for you what's available out there as much as I can, and I'll try my best.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever called her twice.
No.
She's the one that always called me and said, well, guess I got
Good for you, yeah.
So I think that sometimes you have to talk. You have to make things, this is how I feel, or this is what's happening with me. It might not be the same with her or anybody
that's
else.
right. Yep.
But like I say, each situation is different. They have to be treated different.
No, that's right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you can't. But again, like I said, you know, part of what we do as an organization is to make sure people get the help they need when they need it, right? I mean, we're not miracle workers. We don't know everything, but we're going to help as much as we can navigate you in the right direction and as to what you need to be doing and how to do it, right? But again, too, support groups help a lot. If you're interested in coming to the support group, let me know, for you know. And it's on, like I said, it's usually at this time, 1 to 3 on this day, the first Wednesday of every month, at the medicine shop. So if you're interested in coming, let me know.